let's start a new series celebrating the games we love. Look, some of these games and these series, yeah, they have their imperfections, but there's reasons why we keep coming back to them. This is the best thing in, and we're starting with Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter. The series where you set off across a sprawling and sometimes unsprawling map to hunter monsters. Guess the clue's kind of in the name there, huh? It's just you and the elements, tracing tracks and following movement patterns. Yep, just you, the wilds, and, well, also your bipedal cat who talks in nothing but feline puns. And sometimes a handler that just won't shut up. A world of fantastic beasts once you've found where to find them. All manner of claw, horn, talon and flame. With an armory on your back, you build for the fight, hone your craft, and set out to slay your mark. The first installment on the series was released on the 11th of March 2004 for the PlayStation 2, developed by Capcom. Monster Hunter has kept going fairly consistently through the time in between. Initially more of a hit in its home country of Japan, the series hit global mega status with the release of Monster Hunter World in 2018 for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and eventually the PC. The series prides itself on its deep mechanical game systems. Combat is weighty and punishing. One overcommitment could end in death. But crucially, that's not only true for you the player, but of the monster themselves. As they give away the next move, with time you'll learn how to counter their movements and hit them in the downtime afterwards. I first entered the fray back in 2017. I bought a lovely new 3DS XL ready for the release of Pokemon Sun and Moon. Well, specifically Sun. But anyway, I love my trip through Alola, resonating with my dream of visiting its real-life counterpart one day. And since I had the 3DS, I picked up Smash 4 as well. Was always a massive fan of Smash ever since its first incarnation. But eventually both of those games wore out on me, and I found myself looking at this console in my hands and thinking, yeah, I should probably get at least another game or two to justify the cost of this thing. In Sainsbury's one day, I was perusing the 3DS games and saw two for Monster Hunter. There was one called 4 Ultimate and one called Generations. Now, I'd never actually seen any Mohan gameplay before, which will definitely come up to be relevant later in this video. But for some reason, I remember feeling reassured that this was a well-respected franchise. I think I'd seen it mentioned in some Rabid Luigi video at some point. Well, I love Pokemon for the monster designs. This has monster in the title. Let's go for it. And I took a guess at 4 Ultimate because, well, it has a number in the title, and thus sounds like a main series game, when Generations could be a spin-off. Turns out either would have been just fine, but 4 Ultimate was slightly more traditional in its representation of the series. Well, hi there, I'm Dunks, and you're not, but that's okay. If you keep working on it, one day you might be. This little mini-series is a way of me avoiding trying to do 3-hour retrospective videos and just focusing in on one thing about a game that I love. Okay, to be honest, I'm going to mention a few things, because I can't help gushing about it. And since I assume you're here because you're a Monster Hunter fan, why don't you let me know down in the comments what's your favourite thing about the series? And then comment on each other's comments and get a good conversation going. Thanks for coming along. Right, about those monster designs. The series did not disappoint. The world we live in is full of majestic and, frankly, insane creatures. Both beautiful and horrifying. But they are all eventually bound by the laws of physics and biology. Video games are a medium where we don't have to play by those rules. And while some series can go a little too far in the other direction, Mohan does a great job at taking some liberties while still having its own sense of limit. So absolutely, we can suspend disbelief and say, yeah, this fish can swim through lava. Or this Thanos thing can eat rocks, but somehow it feels grounded. Like maybe 70% grounded. But we all subconsciously already accommodate for that 30%. So, there are the odd times when it breaks its own laws a little bit. It's subjective, of course, but to me, the rocket-powered Valstrax kinda breaks the immersion a little bit. The mechanical engineer in me can't help but wonder just how many joules of energy are required for such flight, and what its food sources must be in order to maintain that. But all in all, I'd say the series is pretty consistently glorious in the delivery of its monster designs. But that's not the best thing about Monster Hunter for me. Perhaps, arguably, the strongest point could be all that aforementioned weighted combat. Like I said, each movement you take as a hunter has a level of commitment to it, and each punch, throw, or laser beam by the monster does as well. As you familiarise yourself with each new opponent, you gradually start to build up a sense of the language of the fight, the movements and tells that indicate what your opponent will do next. Deeper still, you become aware that even your positioning has an effect on the monster's choice of attacks. With this in hand, you can even condition the foe's behaviour to create openings for yourself. So maybe you can safely take that big swing, or small poke, or that shot, or play that melody. Monster Hunter offers up 14 different weapon archetypes for you to freely choose from for a given hunt. Think of these as 14 different playstyles, broadly speaking that is, because even within one weapon, a hunter could choose to use its moveset in wildly different ways. In fact, it's relatively fair to say that entire games could be built upon any one of these weapons. It's incredible depth, but that's where I put a twist in the tale, and say that to me, this isn't the absolute best thing about Monster Hunter. Why? Because in some ways, one of its greatest strengths also becomes one of its greatest weaknesses. And that leads us on, finally, to the best thing. Are you ready? Let's do this. See, remember earlier how I told you that I never actually remember watching any Monster Hunter gameplay before buying it? Well, that's not at all normal for me. I was going in blind. At the time of 4 Ultimate's release, the series had been around for around 10 or 11 years, going from the series' slightly clunky opening game, and gradually refining, building, and, of course, complicating. Complexity is not inherently a bad thing, of course. In recreational pursuits, complexity breathes life through the art of puzzle solving and engagement of all your usually sedentary brain-rotted neurons. The game Baba Is You is an excellent example of the art of gently introducing more and more twists and exceptions into a game system to continually challenge and amuse the player. 4 Ultimate is the polar opposite of this. There are technically some tutorials in there, but often it's more in-the-moment text box or a case of looking through the in-game user guide, if you even know to look for that. There are tutorial hunts for the 14 different weapons, but they are enclosed arena hunts using the worst incarnation of that gear, where each mission just begins with, again, a long text vomit from an NPC. And you just kind of have to try and take in all of the button prompts that they are telling you about. See, it's kind of beautiful that each weapon could be its own entire game, because it shows how deep and how mature the series is. But being thrown into it as a newcomer is overwhelming. It's so easy to misunderstand a weapon because the game represents it in a way that just doesn't click with you. The lance, for example. The NPC tells you about a running charge attack. That sounds fun. You give it a try, but little do you know that the lance charge doesn't work when the weapon has a yellow sharpness. And this lance has like 3 hits until it goes to yellow. Well, clearly this weapon sucks. I'm not using it again. And that's just the weapon systems alone. I mean, this game doesn't have health bars or damage indicators, so you don't really know if you're being effective or not. Then there's the calculus of the armor skill systems. Well, how about material gathering and how craftable items can break as you try to craft them? And that's just skimming the surface. Honestly, sometimes it felt less like depth and more like an abyss, a thessalophobic nightmare. The bow, for example. I look at the list of weapons, I think Legolas is cool, so naturally, the bow. But the controls in 4 Ultimate are just weird. And it's taken me like 45 minutes to hunt a Gypsaros? I followed the guidance from the game, but I'm still clearly doing something wrong. Alright then. How to play the bow in 4 Ultimate, right. New game series, so I guess a whole bunch of new content creators. Who's Arex Gaming? Okay, weird name, but whatever. Okay, right. Okay, that's what that does. Okay, and oh, that works like that. Okay. Let's try again with this knowledge. Still don't like the bow, but he's got other tutorials, so maybe I'll try out some of the other weapons. What does the sword and shield do? Oh, right, okay, yeah, let's try that. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, that feels a lot better. Wow, okay. 4 Ultimate came out before the Western explosion that happened with the release of Monster Hunter World. There were not a lot of people making approachable content about it. I mean, when you think about it, it's not exactly easy to even get the gameplay footage. You need a modified 3DS. And so, bit by bit, I became aware of tutorials by Arex, Gaijin Hunter, and Pro Jared, demystifying the game, taking my hand and step by step walking me through. For the vast majority of games, this is not needed for me. Either the tutorial systems are robust enough, or it just clearly makes sense what you're supposed to do. And I don't really think that this is a compliment to the development team of Monster Hunter itself. At the time of releasing this video, we are just a couple of months away from the release of the next major entry into the series, Monster Hunter Wilds. And I've seen interviews where the developers are still wrestling with how to onboard new players. I think they see it themselves, that this depth that gives the game so much replayability and addictiveness can be overbearing if mishandled. But you have to balance that with the needs of the veteran players. One day I'll talk about 4 Ultimate as a whole, but that is not this day. I ended up playing hundreds of hours of it. Still eventually gave up at a couple of different points because, frankly, the game has its own BS. But I've many more hours in World and Rise, where the same issues were not as prevalent, and I could enjoy a much more refined, modernized expression of the game. And that's where I get into the best thing about Monster Hunter. I wouldn't have got that far if it wasn't for them. Those content creators who went out of their way to make in-depth tutorials about a niche game that wasn't really going to make them big dollars. You know, it's not like it's Call of Duty or Zelda, but taking a step back and recontextualizing that with the bigger picture. Seeing all the new channels that have stepped up in the years afterwards. Even getting to join in myself with my own channel. For example, my Wilds Open Beta Lance Guide, which did so well, and I'm so grateful for that. The best thing about Monster Hunter is you, the community, working together to figure this out. I mean, sure, sometimes the community gets a little toxic and overly meta-focused, but we see the abyss. We put on our scuba gear, and we teach others how to do the same. Then we dive in together and witness the wonders of the ocean's floor. Well, that's my take anyway. What about you? Like I said before, let me know down in ye old comments what your favourite thing is about Monster Hunter. Subscribe for more content coming up about Wilds, about the Lance, because yes, I did end up loving the Lance eventually. In fact, Arex helped me. In World, I was curious and I just trying out different weapons, and his guide really helped me get it, and I fell in love. And of course, I'm going to be doing videos on other games. Borderlands is up next. If you have liked this video, please give it a like. It would mean so much to me. It's really encouraging, especially as a small content creator, to see that like come up. Oh, so good. And if you're part of any online communities that would enjoy this video, please share it with them as well. So anyway, I hope you have a wonderful week, whatever you're doing. I hope dogs wag their tail when they see you, and that you get to pet lots of great cute cats. Take care, and I'll catch you on the other side.